Top 10 cheapest countries to live in Africa. European countries are a highly sought-after destination for immigrants from around the world. The continent offers opportunities and standard of living like nowhere else. Like the saying goes, however, not all that glitters is gold. Immigrants, especially those from Africa, put so much effort into moving there that they soon discover it's a different world entirely from the one they were told. Some of these immigrants passed through Tunisia and Egypt on their way to Europe. Unknown to many, these African countries offer some of the cheapest costs of living in the world. Norway and Switzerland, on the other hand, are the third and fourth most expensive countries in the world to live. Just as with most countries in Europe, African countries may not offer much in the way of opportunities and amenities that Europe offers, but they offer a cheap cost of living. Of the 10 countries in the world with a low cost of living, 2 are in Africa, while all 10 are developing countries. In today's video, we'll bring you the 10 countries in Africa with the lower cost of living. If you're new here, you're welcome. Consider subscribing to continue exploring opportunities. 10. Kenya. The 10th least expensive country to live in Africa is Kenya. The country has cost of living index of 39.26. Although your lifestyle and choices of wares and amenities could alter your expenses, Kenya remains relatively cheap. The country is rated as being 45% cheaper than the USA, and Nairobi, its largest city, is 50% cheaper than London. On average, cost of living in Kenya ranges from $700 to $2,500 per month. 9. Zambia. Occupying the 9th spot for the least expensive country in Africa is Zambia. The southern African country, considered to be one of the most stunning, friendly, varied, and untouched countries in Africa, has a CDI of 35.59. Although the cost of living in the country is relatively high compared to some of its neighbors, it is still one of the cheapest countries in the world. As a landlocked country, Zambia imports most of its products from its neighbors, making them significantly costlier. Average cost of living in the country is around $600 to $1,200, depending on size of family and lifestyle. 8. Tanzania. With a CDI of 35.07, Tanzania comes in as the 8th least expensive country in Africa. The East African country is home to some of Africa's most majestic game reserves and its tallest mountain. Cost of living in the country varies, with its largest city, Dar es Salaam, having a higher cost of living than other parts of the country. On average, however, Tanzania remains a relatively inexpensive country. Cost of living in the country could average between $700 to $1,800. 7. Morocco. Officially known as the Kingdom of Morocco, this country not only offers some of the best standards of living in Africa, it does so at a relatively cheap cost. The cost of living index of Morocco is pegged at 34.59, making it one of the cheapest places on earth to live in. This laid-back and beautiful country is one of Africa's wealthiest and has some of its most spectacular scenery. While the cost of amenities like accommodation, transportation, and utilities can vary depending on the city, food is generally cheap. 6. Rwanda. A country that has been dubbed as the Singapore of Africa, Rwanda is one of Africa's fastest growing economies. The East African country is the 6th cheapest place to live on the continent and has a CDI of 34.01. The small country also has the fastest growing economy in Africa and second in the world at 8.7% growth rate. 5. Nigeria. Africa's largest economy and its second wealthiest, Nigeria is the 5th least expensive country to live in Africa. Outside of the traditional playground for the rich in parts of Lagos and Abuja, the rest of the country has a relatively low cost of living. With more than half its population living in extreme poverty, government had to subsidize the price of some basic commodities. Nigeria's CDI is 31.75, making it one of Africa. The country gets its nickname from the bodies of water around its borders. The country, despite all its beauty, remains one of the cheapest places to live in Africa. The country's CDI is 31.72, making it the 4th cheapest place to live in Africa. 3. Algeria. Officially known as the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, this North African country is considered the largest country on the entire African continent and the 10th largest in the world. The country is famous for producing some of the best dates in the world. Algeria is ranked as the 3rd least expensive place to live in Africa. It has a CDI of 30.54. Algeria is one of a handful of countries that have achieved 20% poverty reduction in the past 2 decades. The Algerian government took significant steps to improve the well-being of its people by implementing social policies in line with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. The country's oil boom has enabled the government to service Algeria's external debt, invest in infrastructure projects, and improve the country's human development indicators. The country also offers free healthcare to its citizens. 2. Egypt. Egypt is one country that may not strike you as being inexpensive, given its large tourism market. Egypt is a country for both adventure and history lovers alike. It offers some of the world's most amazing wonders along with natural beauty and ancient temples and tombs. The North African country has a CDI of 29.09. In addition to a low cost of living, investment opportunities by way of real estate are also growing in appeal. This has led to a boom in Egypt's real estate. Housing is, however, relatively cheap in the country. 1. Tunisia. Finally, we arrive at Africa's least expensive location. It is the small, beautiful Mediterranean nation of Tunisia. The country is Africa's least expensive and the 5th least expensive place in the world. With a population of 11 million people, Tunisia has a CDI of 25.43. Food and housing are relatively cheap in the country, and the country is considered 94 times cheaper to live in than New York. There you have it, Africa's least expensive countries to live in. Do you live in any of these countries or have you visited any before? If you have, share your thoughts with us about costs and expenses in any of the countries in the comment box. If you're yet to subscribe to After School Africa, now's the time to hit the subscribe button. Until next time, your success matters. Hit the subscribe button. Until next time, your success matters.